Head softball coach Mike Armitage, who are you and why are you here?
Well, I'm a guy that's played fast pitch for as long as I can remember. I remember I was 13 years old. My dad and I used to do the parks in my hometown, Albany, Wisconsin, and we got the fields ready for a tournament. My dad was over shooting hoops. My dad said, "Hey, there's a team that's short. Do you want to come over and play?" And so I played my first game of fast pitch in my basketball shoes and shorts. Didn't do too well at the plate, but fielded a few ground balls and threw a few guys out. But fell in love with the game and have been in love with it ever since. Was a baseball guy too, but when those days were done, fast pitch quickly took over and filled that void. So played a pretty high level, played international level for a while, and then got into a lot of high school coaching, numerous sports really. But I knew one, if I was going to go to the college ranks, softball was probably going to be that sport. So one of the places I was coaching at high school, one of my players was getting recruited by Illinois State University, and it was shortly after the rule changed that you had to wait until the junior year to talk to them. And she came up and talked to me, just said, what do you think about this kid? And after that discussion, I was like, hey, what do I got to do to get into the college ranks? I said, I really want to, but I don't know the route to go. And they had a volunteer position opened up just a few months prior to that. So they were looking for somebody, jumped on there. And then we had one of our paid assistants took a head job somewhere else, and that opened up a spot for me. So I had been there ever since, and then until I came here in September. So that was kind of the ladder, I guess. But
A couple of follow-up questions. What made you want to go from the high school to college? Like what shifted in your head to say, yep, I need to get to that level and I want to make it work?
yeah, I think probably a key word that would describe most of that would be investment. The investment I was making on my part, as far as trying to make my team, that my current high school team at that time, better. And there were some kids that were reciprocating that, but there was also too many, in my opinion, that weren't. I know the level I was coaching at, that I had to accept there were kids that were just there for the social aspect of it. And I did that, but I knew if I was going to continue to coach that I wanted more. I was a teacher there. I knew I could always go back there if things didn't work out at the college ranks. But I find that going to practice and having, kids that I'm coaching that are trying to get better each and every day. I mean, that's satisfying to me. I can deal with that. And whatever our levels are, as long as we're working hard to get better, I can deal with it.
How did you end up here at MSUM as our head softball coach?
Well, I looked around quite a bit, I mean, I gained a lot of experiences with my assistant years, where I was at, and just kind of said, and as you're an assistant, you do the right thing because that's what is your expectation, by your head coach. But you always also have like a separate compartment that in your mind that says, I don't quite know if I do it that way, but I'm instructed to, so that's the way I'm going to do it. So anyhow, I mean, you do what you have to do there, but you're always putting things back in that compartment to say, here's how I would do it if I was running it. And I just kind of said, I want to take a shot at running it, and kind of calling the shots. And recruiting's a big deal with that. I feel like you find kids left and right that you're thinking to yourself, I think this kid would be great for our program. And then now I got to go make sure it's okay with the other assistant, and I got to make sure it's okay with the head coach. And then the ball can get rolling with recruiting the kid. But now as I go out and recruit, and I've recruited plenty this fall and even into January, I'm thinking, man, this is great. That's the kid I want. That's the kid I want to go after. So it's not really a shortcut in doing the work, but it's a shortcut in the timetable it takes to get the work done. So I really feel that's a benefit, knowing what I want, go out and get them. I can talk with my assistant. Here's what I think we need. He gives me feedback on what he believes too. And we're on the same page with that, quite a bit. And, as we talked before we started here, I mean, pitching is just a huge deal. So, I mean, it's when any profile that comes over to us and we see pitching, we're going to look. There's no question we're going to look. Some other positions, you might be a little more filled up, a little almost, I don't say too much depth, but plenty of depth. I don't believe you can ever really have enough pitching. So if there's a pitcher that comes over or across our screen, we're gonna check her out for sure.
Well, that plays into kind of what I wanted to get into is just, your coaching philosophy. A lot of the stuff that we talk about in the podcast is not so much the X's and O's, just, the things that are a little bit more than the game. And part of that is a coach's philosophy and how they approach the game, approach the team, approach the leadership, approach the other staff, and how they want to run the program. What is your coaching philosophy for Dragon softball?
Yeah, I think one of the things I wanted to make sure we did here was make sure we got some of the fun back in the game. The bottom line is we're still playing a kid's game, and I think it's important that at some point, the young ladies that we have playing for us right now, at some point, that's all they played for. They played just because they loved to play the game. They didn't play because they're trying to get recruited. They didn't play because they're trying to keep a scholarship. They played because they loved the game, and that's something that we really, really want to get back into them before they, call it a career. And I think we're going down that right road. But it's just the idea of playing the game hard, knowing how to laugh, knowing how to have fun, understanding that things are going to happen on the field, things are going to happen on the bus, whatever. It's okay to laugh, but when the ball's put in play, we've got to pay attention to detail. We got to make sure we're doing our job. We got to make sure we're supporting our teammates, So you put the hard hat on when you need to, and then it's okay to have a good time while you're doing that. So that's the idea. And sometimes it's easier said than done, because a lot of the things that we do in our sport are a tad monotonous. We take a ton of swings in the cage, and if things aren't working right, boy, it seems like it's pretty frustrating. But and pitching's no different. So when things aren't working right, that's frustrating too. So, but you just keep chipping away, at the big picture, and they've got to understand that this game is not. It's not one good practice and all of a sudden you're a good ball player. It's a lot of same old stuff, but are you going to stay consistent with your efforts each time to help you really get better?
And you've been with us here for a little while. We've got a few games under your belt, and head coach at the high school level, assistant at the college level. Has this experience of being a head college coach lived up to what your expectations were?
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is when I was an assistant, you could see the jobs of the other people. You're like, okay, clearly there's a ton of this, a ton of that, a ton of whatever, there's a lot more meetings here, a lot more meetings there, whatever the case is. The behind the scenes stuff that I think a lot of people that know a lot about the game, but don't know a lot about what happens when you're a head coach. I think even though I felt like I was kind of getting prepared for that, there's still more than what you know. And a lot of that's just going from one school to another. We do things here one way here at MSUM. It was different where I was at before, and other schools in the NSIC are probably going to do it differently too, a little bit, but no, I think I was appreciative of the experiences that I had. I think that helped prepare me, but at the same point, you're never fully prepared. So I think, but I also think that, the ability to make some adjustments on the move. I think my days of being a PE teacher really helped out in that, because I felt like I wrote some pretty good, plans for PE class, but they had never seemed to work. You always have to makeshift one thing or another, or you've got kids on this team, kids on that team. You always got to do something within that lesson or whatever to make it a little bit better and more efficient. So, but I think it's very similar in coaching. You have to be flexible. Where we're at here, we're just out on the turf. Plenty of people are going to use the turf, so be flexible, be a team player within the entire school, not just within your program.
You talked a little bit about your recruitment tactics in pitchers. What does that ideal recruit, other than pitching, have that you're looking for as part of the Dragon softball program?
Well, I think that sometimes you can just tell an athlete's that drive to get better. I think it's real easy for athletes, male, female, don't care who, they can say, I want to play softball. We get a lot of profiles that we read and we're like, I really think I could help this team. Or I really think that, well, the bottom line is I want to have a starting point that's at a better spot than where some of our starting points are, and I think it's been fair to inform my kids that I inherited of what my expectations are and say, look, here's the bottom line. We have a year here and we're going to do everything we can to get every kid here better, to get us better. But the bottom line is we're going to try and recruit kids that are better. And when those kids come in, we're not just going to settle. We're going to try and recruit kids that are better than them. And I think that's really a message that I believe they've heard, and I believe they understand. And I believe that they They try and come get better every day. They're putting extra time in. It's not required time with me or required time with Coach Jesse. So it's been good as far as that goes. It's been really good. But I think that's the whole key. I mean, everybody's going to work a certain number of hours, in college sports. What are you going to do that's going to make you separate yourself from those other athletes? Because I'll guarantee successful programs don't just go 15 hours during their 45 days in the fall. They don't just go the 6 or 8 hours you get outside of those 45 days. I'll bet they don't just go to practice and call it good. I'm going to bet those successful programs are doing a heck of a lot more than that. So in the summers, you can take some time off. You need some mental, you need some physical time off, but you need to make sure that you're not losing anything during that time off. So I think that player that's willing to, absolutely, I call this kind of fill in your glass, absolutely fill the glass every time they take the field. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I was, it's like you're reading my bio. I was one of those individuals who came in, and I knew that the level of play that we were at, the people coming in should be better than me. And, I could control my effort, but you can't control the outcome, is one of my favorite quotes. And I was putting in the extra time, doing the effort, doing all that kind of stuff. And no matter what I did, my outcome was never going to result in the next person was going to be better than me, whether I liked it or not.
Yep.
And, sometimes those are hard conversations when a program is on the grow, and, now they're winning tournament championships and things like that. So they've obviously done that in where I started over there on the orange ball side of things. But as far as yellow ball, what does the outlook look like after you've seen this team? You've seen them in action a few games. We're going to open it up here at home this week and see them on the turf to start, and hopefully over on the field sometime soon. What is the outlook for this year? What do fans need to come check out when it comes to Dragon softball?
Well, I think one thing, I've actually heard this from some of the parents that would make comments here and there after the game or doubleheader or whatever, and they'd say, I know you don't see it now in the win-loss department, but it's so much better this year. It's so much better. We're competing in games. It's so much better now. To me, I don't know. I guess I'm one of those guys that's I struggle collecting a lot of moral victories, but at some point you got to build somewhere. You got to start from somewhere. So, okay, let's do that. Now I feel like that's the gray area. I don't want it to be gray. Let's get a little bit more rigid with it and say, let's either do it or don't, let's win or don't win. And there's always great things, we can lose some ball games and play really well. That's just the way the game is. We can also get hammered and 8-0, 9-0, 10-0, and you can pick out good things. Hey, so-and-so made a heck of a catch there. You had 3 really good at bats at the plate. You can always pick stuff out. But the big picture is collectively, we have to make sure we're doing the right thing. Unless it's a pitcher, one person isn't going to win you a lot of ball games. So the more we get, or the quicker we can get the idea of, hey, you did this good, you did that good. Instead, we can get that, man, we collectively really hit the ball well today. We collectively played good defense today. Our pitching staff collectively pitched really well today. When you can throw those 3 phases together, now all of a sudden we're going to win some ball games, and we're going to feel good. Even if you don't win, you're going to feel good about the way you played. You just know that, hey, next time I got to do a little bit more, or we have to do a little bit more to get a win. So that's the idea. But I think the outlook, as far as the team goes, man, our goals are still in place. Our goal was to make the tournament this year. Our goal was to make sure we're as prepared as we can at the beginning of conference. And I think that's what we did with the schedule we had, and we were able to compile. I like it. We've got 4 games, hopefully 4 games this week with Mayville that we can continue to polish before we start our conference season. And I look at some conference teams and I go, that's going to be a pretty tall order. We play in a pretty tough conference, but those are games we're going to learn from. And I see some teams in our conference that I go, I think we're just as good as this team. I think we're going to beat this team. I feel good about our chances against this team. So that type of thing. It's, if I was looking at a spectator and saying, here's one thing that I want to make sure when you leave the field is our team's going to compete. And I think that's one thing that we're really gonna have to work hard at. But I think it's what our kids have inside them too. I think that's who they are. That's who they want to be. That's who they want this program to be, to carry that image. If you're going to beat us, you're going to have to play well to beat us. And that's it's kind of what we're looking for. And I really believe that's the outcome that I think a lot of people will see when they come watch us play.
I love ending with this question. You told me your experience. Why do you love softball?
Well, I tell you, Webby, it's given me so much. It really has. I've met so many people through the game. Honestly, I met my wife at the ballpark. I got two wonderful kids. Katie was a softball player where I used to coach, where I was an assistant coach at. She went overseas and played. Came back. Man, I did. I met her at the ballpark through some common friends, through some teammates, things like that. And obviously, we have that in common. And you know, we used to, before I was an assistant coach, we used to sit watching. You get later in the seasons, you're getting close to the World Series and stuff like that, and you're watching places. You know, you're watching LSU play, you're watching the Florida Gators play, and stuff like that. You know, and it's pretty fun for me to be able to say I got to go coach there. You know, 3 years prior to that, we're looking at it on TV. You know, thinking, I mean, that's someplace I'll never see. You know, but then you get to go compete there. You know, so I mean, this game is really given me a lot of opportunity to do some traveling, to meet wonderful people. Probably the thing I love the most about it, other than, you know, getting my family from that, is I get to spread my knowledge to younger people. I think a true coach really, in order to look at themselves in the mirror and say, I'm doing my job, is they need to want their players to be better than what they were. And that can only happen, I think, with giving them everything you have as far as your knowledge, ways to get better, ways to be a better teammate, ways to have your teammates get better because of you. So I think that's probably the greatest gift that I could probably give somebody. And I don't really know if I'm giving it back. I don't feel like I owe anything. I don't feel like I'm giving it back. It's just sometimes sports are just a part of you, you know, and that's who you are. It's who you like being. So that's what you do, you know. So, and right now I'm too darn old to keep playing the game. So I gotta stay involved somehow. And I really love it. You know, you could take all the home runs you ever hit, diving plays you ever made. You can ball them all up, but I mean, it's nothing compared to when you teach a kid how to do something right, and then they find success in it. I mean, nothing's better than that, you know. And that's something that I really take a lot of pride in.
Yeah, it's fun when sports becomes part of your identity as an athlete, and
Yeah.
Who are you? Oh, I'm this years old, and I'm a basketball player, or I'm a softball player, and it just becomes the first words out of your mouth, and it becomes a part of who you are. And if you were in a family that was around it your entire life, it's been ingrained in your DNA and the words and the jargon that you use to describe everything in your life. And then you go to the next level where it kind of becomes a little different. I mean, it's definitely a different pace, different experience. But as you said, it's one of those things where if you can teach someone to do something in such a way that makes them successful, you know, like you said, having the team compete, and we talk about how those things transition after that's not part of your identity anymore. And, you know, we talk about that piece, and then all of a sudden you're no longer a softball player. What skills can you take out? And it's competing for jobs, competing for projects, competing. If you're a salesperson, you're competing against the market, competing in relationships to, there's so many different aspects of it, but teaching someone how much effort it takes to be successful at the level they want to be successful at, because we all want to be successful at different levels. If you want to be the best in the world, this is the amount of effort it's going to take, and it's going to piss a lot of people off because you got to be a monster to get to that level. And that's kind of where I've fallen in love a little bit with Division II. It's below that monstrosity a little bit, but it's still a very high level of effort, of engagement, of competition. And it's as you said to the fans, watching softball in our league, it's fun to watch because it is a high level, and we get to enjoy that, get up close and be intimate with that atmosphere here at MSUM. So thanks for growing it and for getting after it here early on in your head coaching career with us, and we look forward for more wins to come.
All right, thanks a lot, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.